Who day, who day, who day. Hello, CPS and everyone out on Facebook Live joining us now, and those that will be watching this broadcast in the future. My name is Josh Harden, and I'm the CPS Athletics Manager, and I'd like to welcome you to another session of CPS Athletics Beyond the Game. This is our new series where we'll dive deeper into being a student athlete and going beyond the sports we may coach and play. Earlier this school year, we had a very impactful session where we spoke deeply about mental health in sports. Today, we dive deeper into a very hot topic surrounding name, image, and likeness. We have a few presenters today that will take us through name, image, and likeness as it pertains to our current students in high school, our alum and soon-to-be alumni that may be playing sports in college and beyond. We're excited to keep the Beyond the Game series going, and we'll be hosting our next session on February 15th. This session will highlight our partners, Honest Game, who oversee a platform that will help our student athletes navigate NCAA academic eligibility. They are an industry-leading academic compliance support that will empower our student athletes, coaches, and families with a plan that provides guidance on classes, grades, and test scores needed to achieve the goals of being able to receive a college scholarship. Back to our presentation today on name, image, likeness. I would like to introduce all of our presenters. If all of our presenters will turn their videos on. Fantastic. First, from Ohio High School Athletic Association, talking about the high school impact, we have the Manager of Membership and Compliance, Ronald Sayers. Thanks for joining us, Ron. Next, from the University of Cincinnati Compliance Office, sharing impact on the NCAA level, welcome Associate AD of Compliance, Trevor Wright. Thanks for joining us, Trevor. An entrepreneur and co-founder of Nunbelievable, we are joined by Kuda Biza. Thanks for joining us, Kuda. Lastly, Colleen Cheek, who oversees the Cincinnati Public Schools Academic and Athletic Accountability Pathway Initiative as our manager through a strong and collaborative partnership with activities beyond the classroom. Thank you, Colleen. I'll ask our presenters to turn their videos off, and I'll ask Colleen to stay on and share a little bit more about the AAA pathway and kick us off this evening. Colleen.
Well, thank you, Josh, for that introduction. I'm going to share my screen here. So one of the first things I wanted to do was talk a little bit more about our AAA pathway. All of our families, our student athletes, they are on our AAA pathway as a part of Cincinnati Public School athletics. So that academic and athletic accountability, we want to make sure our student athletes and our families are prepared to succeed in the classroom in high school and beyond. So part of that is making sure eligibility checks are happening for in-season athletes. No matter what sport you do, those in-season weekly grade checks are happening. For those student athletes that are struggling, are needing a little bit of extra support, we try to find tutoring options. We try to connect them with ways for them to improve their grades and offer stronger academic support through our AAA pathway coaches that are at each individual Cincinnati public school. As a part of that AAA pathway, we offer resources like this program here, the Beyond the Game series. We offer ACT boot camps that we're actually just launching our next one next week with Torch Prep. And there are a lot of other resources that the AAA pathway offers our student athletes. If there is any question of how a student can go to the next level, how a student can succeed in high school and move to that next level, we want that AAA pathway to be that first point of connection. So that student athlete reaching out to that AAA pathway coach at their school, and then reaching out to me or Josh, figuring out what we can do to support to move them to the next level. Now with that, back to the topic at hand, want to make sure that we're talking about name, image, and likeness. So we have some wonderful guest speakers today that are experts in their field, but I wanted to kind of start the subject to really do a high-level overview, while our experts will go into more detail, whether it's from the high school perspective, whether it's the college perspective, and then thinking as a student athlete, thinking about what kind of opportunities, sponsorships, ways to use and leverage your name, your image, your likeness at the next level. Those will be kind of the stair-step stages that we're going to talk about today. So what is the name, image, and likeness? In easy terms, it's a student athlete may earn a compensation, a benefit as a result of the use of their name, their image, their likeness for a commercial or promotional purpose. It is really important that student athletes at the college level, at the level beyond that, they're getting compensated, they're getting that recognition for using their name, image, and likeness. And our guest speaker, Trevor from UC Athletics, will actually go into a little bit more of that background of why it's so important, of some of the issues that we saw across the nation and why these changes are happening on the NCAA level, and then pushing down to the high school level, what that means for our high school athletes. So as of July 1st, 2021, the NCAA put an interim policy into place. So the interim policy, again, that's a policy until they get something much more firm, that they work with Congress, they work with current legislation to figure out how they can have the same type of rules across the board from college. But what they can do right now is have all three divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3 for the NCAA, adopt a uniform interim policy. So it suspends the current NCAA name, image, and likeness rules. So currently, student athletes can engage in name, image, and likeness activities consistent with the law of their state where their school is located. So that's really important. And Trevor will go into this a little bit more about the background of why this issue came up. But there are certain states that have different laws in regards to name, image, and likeness for student athletes. So it's really important to know what state you're operating in, whether you're in high school or whether it's going to be the college or university that you want to attend and move forward with. Student athletes can also engage in name, image, and likeness activity without violating NCAA rules if they live or attend in a school without one of those name, image, and likeness laws. Student athletes now can also use professional services provider for name, image, and likeness activities. And that's a really important piece of it, because you're trying to find a group to represent you and make sure that you're getting the biggest bang from your buck, you're making good deals, and using your name, image, and likeness in a way that is supporting you in the best way it can. And then student athletes should always report name, image, and likeness activities consistent with state laws, their school and conference requirements to their school. So double checking that what you're doing is appropriate, that what you're doing is legal, and that the school has a sign off on it. Because state law and school and conferences may impose reporting requirements or other requirements when it comes to those name, image, and likeness rules. This is a comment by the NCAA president, and it just speaks to some of the issues when it comes to some of the legal issues. So this is an important day for college athletes, since they are all able to take advantage of name, image, and likeness opportunities. With the variety of state laws adopted across the country, we will continue to work with Congress to develop a solution that will provide clarity on a national level. The current environment, both legal and legislative, prevents us from providing a more permanent solution in the level of detail student athletes deserve. But it is something that the NCAA wants to find that permanent solution, and they are moving forward in a way that makes sense for student athletes. So what name, image, and likeness rules really means, some of the basic things for it. It does not equal pay to play. It is not anything about improper recruiting. All of those things are still illegal, not pay for play, and no improper recruitment and inducement for recruitment. So by the NCAA bylaws, including it's still prohibited for pay for play and improper recruiting. Those still remain in effect. And then the NCAA will continue to its normal regulatory operations, but it will not monitor for compliance with state law. So that is why it's so important for you to double check with the school that you plan on going to, and also with your local high school, what those operational rules are. And then individuals should always report those name, image, and likeness activities to the school that they're going to, or double checking again with the state law. So these are some of the do's and don'ts, but this will be something that Trevor goes into a little bit more. Again, it allows people to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, prohibits that pay for play and improper recruitment. The interim policy does incorporate student athlete feedback. So this is a fluid kind of program right now. They are trying to get feedback of what's going to best benefit the student athletes. And they do acknowledge the need for school and student athletes to comply with state law. It does not allow compensation contingent on enrollment for a particular school. So again, no pay for play, no improper recruitment, and it does not permit compensation for work not performed. So making sure you have deliverables written out is really important when you're understanding those deals. For prospective student athletes, you may engage in the same types of name, image, and likeness opportunities available to current student athletes under the interim name, image, likeness policy without impacting their NCAA eligibility. But that does not take into account, again, your state rules. So Ronald Sayers from the Ohio High School Athletic Association is going to speak specifically on implications of name, image, and likeness rules for Ohio, because we are limited in what we can do currently for name, image, and likeness activities for our high school athletes. Individuals are, again, encouraged to consider the state laws in any rules that would be connected to dealing with the amateurism for their governing bodies, so like the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One potential impact for financial aid, they say the interim policy technically does not impact financial aid, but if you are a student athlete in college and you're making a lot of money based on a name, image, and likeness deal, that could impact what type of aid that you can get. So student athletes are really encouraged to talk to their accountant, to talk to their parents, to talk to their guidance counselors to see how the financial aid situation, how their package for school could potentially be impacted by different policies or different deals that they're planning to do. And then generally the cycle of individual engaged in these type of activities, your individual starts the opportunity presented to engage in a name, image, and likeness activity. We determine that the activity is not a pay for play or an improper recruitment. Schools are a great resource for those state law questions, but the NCAA does not monitor for those compliance with state laws. That is up to the schools and up to those individuals to make sure that they're complying with those. And then individuals are encouraged to report those activities consistent with those state laws to their institution. And then the individual decides whether to engage in those name, image, and likeness activity, and that is the end of the process. So that is the general overview. And with that, I am going to sign off here and invite Ronald Sayers from the Ohio High School Athletic Association to take over. And I will pull up his slides, just a second. And Ronald, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colleen. I appreciate it. And as Josh and Colleen had said, my name is Ronald Sayers. I'm the manager of membership and compliance with the Ohio High School Athletic Association. On the next slide, what you'll see is our compliance team. It's currently made up of 3 individuals. in our office. Kristen Ronay is our Director of Compliance. Again, myself as the Manager of Membership Services and Compliance, and then Alexis Holderman is our Membership and Compliance Administrative Assistant, and we do make up the compliance team. Our goal as the compliance team is to provide our member schools, as well as any of our other constituents, with clarity, consistency, and compassion in any rulings that we provide, any guidance that we provide. So if you do need any clarity on any of the information that's presented during this period, feel free to reach out to us, as we're more than happy to answer any of your questions, whether you're a parent, whether you're an administrator, whether you're a student athlete. We would prefer that you do email us, as we do like to have that in written form. So again, please do not hesitate to reach out at any point. Colleen, you can go to the next slide if you don't mind. The name, image, and likeness issue deals specifically with amateurism in and of itself. Amateurism is covered under Bylaw 4-10 within the OHSAA handbook, and Bylaw 410 has 4 sections. 410.1 indicates that a student who represents a member school in an interscholastic sport must be an amateur to do so. And within this bylaw and within the handbook, we define amateur as a student who participates in the activities of his or her sport for the purpose of deriving the physical, mental, and social benefits organized sports competition has to offer, and not for any present or future pecuniary or monetary or commercial gains. And we'll talk a little bit more about monetary gains later on, but moving down, 410.2 outlines actions that do jeopardize an athlete's amateur status. 410.3 outlines actions that do not jeopardize an amateur athlete status, and we'll talk about two of those, or those two sections specifically here shortly. And then 410.4 covers the process through which an athlete who has lost their amateur status may be reinstated by the association. I won't go into that too deep, as it is fairly uncommon, but if you do ever run into that situation, please certainly reach out to us if that does occur. On the next slide, we'll go ahead and outline Bylaw 4-10-2, again, actions that do jeopardize a student athlete's amateurism. First and foremost, competing for money. You may not compete for any type of monetary benefit. However, travel, meals, lodging, those may be accepted so long as the reimbursement of that cash is not dependent upon your individual or team performance within that specific event. Additionally, if you do compete in an amateur division where prize money is available, you can complete the request for retention of amateur status prior to the competition to maintain your amateur status throughout. The second one, capitalizing on an athlete's fame, which is name, image, and likeness, or entering into an agreement with a sports or marketing agent. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, and kind of what's set in stone now, and then what's possibly coming down the road. Third thing was signing a contract, making a commitment to, or competing professionally with a professional organization. And then lastly, receiving a salary, reimbursements, merchandise, services, or any form of financial assistance from a professional sports organization based upon your athletic skill or participation. However, you may receive a reimbursement of expenses for any type of professional tryout. And again, the items that are listed on this page specifically are those that do jeopardize your amateur status with the Ohio High School Athletic Association and how we operate in interscholastic athletics. Bylaw 410.3, these are permitted actions. These, if you take part in any of these, do not jeopardize your amateurism, and you can continue to participate as long as you continue to do these. First and foremost, accepting pay or for instruction or officiating. We are always looking for officials. You can ask Josh about that specifically. We would love to get more officials, so please don't hesitate to do that. You may receive an award that does have a monetary value, which doesn't exceed the award amount authorized in Bylaw 5. Currently, that award limit is $400. So you can receive something. You cannot receive cash or a check or anything of the sort, but you can receive, for instance, a driver in an event, or you can receive a pair of shoes that, so long as those are not worth more than $400, you would be okay. Additionally, receiving any non-monetary benefits and awards provided to all members of an Olympic team or accepting funds from the U.S. Olympic Committee pursuant to its Operation Gold program. Participating in member school, charitable, or educational promotions for fundraising purposes. These are typically swimathons or runathons. Again, these are raising cash for specific charitable purposes. Receiving a school-sponsored membership or participation fee, so long as those are paid directly to the agency. So again, that's receiving money to participate at a local YMCA event or with a specific club. But again, those funds have to be paid directly to the agency that's overseeing that. And then lastly, accepting scholarship funds is always permitted, so long as those are administered by a national governing body. So again, you can take in those funds and use them for a higher education institution. You just have to make sure those are paid directly to that institution as well. So on the next slide, we'll go ahead and talk about name, image, and likeness specifically. So again, we had mentioned 410.2. Specifically, it's 4-10-2B within the regulation as it stands now. So that current regulation does not allow athletes to capitalize on their fame by receiving money, merchandise, or services of value. And we define capitalizing on athletic fame as accepting money, merchandise, or services value based in whole or in part upon the notary the athlete received through their athletic skills and achievements. So you cannot utilize the fame you've garnered by being an athlete specifically to get anything from companies or individuals throughout the community that would ultimately pay you or give you some sort of service or merchandise at all. So you cannot capitalize on your athletic fame as it stands now. Additionally, students may not use athletic skill for pay in any form. So again, this means you can't pay or play for money in any way, shape, or form, although scholarships are specifically exempted. Now we know over the past, it's been about 6-7 months, give or take some, this has changed drastically, especially at the collegiate level. As another individual on this, I believe Trevor from UC will touch on the change in state law has recently occurred, but that only touches on college athletes at this moment. How we are looking at some adjustments that we could make in the near future, and we're modeling that language to be voted on after the state law that went into effect for college athletes, as well as an adjustment that was made by another state in the country that put this forth for their high school athletes. So again, we've drafted this language. It does have to be approved by the OHSAA Board of Directors, and then ultimately it would have to be presented to our member schools for a vote in May. What that means is our organization is a member-run organization. That means any of the rules that you see within the bylaws of the OHSAA are voted on and approved by member schools. We do not have the authority as the employees of the Ohio High School Athletic Association. So myself, Kristen, or Alexis, we're simply not permitted to change any bylaw if we wanted to. It does have to be voted on and approved by a simple majority of our membership. If approved by the membership, student athletes would ultimately have more opportunity to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness without jeopardizing that amateurism. And that this adjustment would likely go into effect this coming May. But again, it does have to be voted on and approved by a simple majority within our membership. And Colleen, you can go to the next slide if you don't mind. And that does wrap up my portion. So you saw on the second slide that we had there that my contact information as well as Kristen's contact information. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us at any point, and then I'm happy to field any questions that have come in at this point from Colleen or Josh, whoever it may be.
Well, thank you very much, Ronald. We'll be sure to put any questions that come up in the chat. If there are questions that come up that are specifically geared towards you, we'll invite you back to the speaker portion to answer those and lend your expertise in there. So thank you very much, Ronald. Appreciate your time and your presentation. And with that, I am going to invite Trevor Wright from UC Athletics to join the call and share his perspective from UC Athletics compliance. So Trevor, if you want to jump on, and then also tell us a little bit about your position with UC, and then obviously jumping into your presentation.
Yeah, so as Colleen mentioned, my name is Trevor Wright, and I'm the Associate Athletic Director of Compliance at the University of Cincinnati. I've been at the University of Cincinnati, this is my 7th year now. Before that, and it's unique looking at the legislation at a larger institution than University of North Carolina, Greensboro, which is where I started out, was there for 3 years. And then previously was in compliance as a graduate assistant at Florida State, and then as an intern at Indiana University as well. So quite a bit of experience in compliance in general in the landscape. But I have to say, in the 12 years or so working in the field, there's never been a time of as much change as there is now. And we're going to talk about one of the big changes, which is name, image, likeness right now. So the timeline. And I have a couple other slides that go a little bit more in depth into the timeline, but basically what spurred the biggest change in NCAA history, what some would say, it is of course the lawsuits that sort of brought name, image, likeness, amateurism to the forefront really in the last couple years. I mean, it started off years ago when everybody used to play that video game, the college football and EA Sports. And people were like, well, why aren't the players getting any kind of benefit from everybody buying this video game? And that was really sort of the forefront, I would say, of really making the topic mainstream. And then, as you can see, California, I'd say in 2019, when the state passed the law, that's when it really got everybody's notice of, oh my goodness, we're going to have to pay attention to this because NCAA rules can't supersede state law. So, Colleen, you want to click the next slide? So this just goes into a little bit more in depth of all the different states that pass state laws, done a lot of committees, and just sort of, informational, trying to figure out what is going on. State after state is passing a new law. What is the state of Ohio doing? Because at that time, the state of Ohio really hadn't passed anything, and there wasn't anything on the docket yet. So we were really trying to figure out what was going to happen. I know Senator Cory Booker, he was at the head of trying to get some national, legislation passed so that we wouldn't be where we're at now, where every state has a different name, image, likeness law, and some that don't have any, and they're going by the NCAA rules. So it's just a very unique time. You can go to the next slide. Very, very unique time in the NCAA landscape where really it all came to a halt July 1st last year, which was when the new rules went into effect, and the very next day you have student athletes coming in looking to really sign some deals and figure out how they can make some money off their name, image, and likeness. And really, I'd say the other date, March 31st, 2021, in the Alston lawsuit, what was very, very pertinent throughout the name, image, likeness sort of timeline as well. And you'll get to that more so with academic achievement money, which we're not going to really go into today, but it's another portion of name, image, likeness that goes along with it as far as all of these lawsuits and all the extra, money that the student athletes are able to get. Specifically, that allows you to give each athlete $5,980. And so, and all you have to do really is maintain academic eligibility at the collegiate level. So that's obviously was a big change going along with name, image, likeness. And if you click the next slide, Colleen, I'll sort of go into the executive order. So right at the last second, when we're all trying to figure out what the state of Ohio is going to do, a few days before, they passed Executive Order 2021-10D. And so we really started diving into, all right, what is going to be Ohio's law in name, image, likeness? And what are we trying to do to educate all of our student athletes, 450 or so at the University of Cincinnati, to really get them to not break state law, because now it's not just breaking NCAA rules, you're going to be breaking state law. Now, to this day, we don't really know exactly how they're going to prosecute anyone who does break the state law, but we wanted to be proactive with our education efforts and really try to make sure that all of our athletes were abiding by it. So click the next slide, please. And so this is the actual executive order. It's 5 pages long, but I'm not going to dive all the way into it, but I wanted to make sure everybody had it in case you would like to go through and read it, in its totality. But summarizing it, really under number 2, A, B, and C, it really focuses on allowing them to profit off their name, image, likeness. And we've seen a lot of deals, and I'll just speak at the broad level, of where name, image, likeness actually is doing a lot of good for student athletes. Back previously, you couldn't say I'm a University of Cincinnati women's soccer player and I would like to do, I'm offering lessons, $25 an hour. Previously, you weren't able to use the part that you were a University of Cincinnati soccer player. And so it's going to be tough to get lessons if people don't know that you're on the team at the collegiate level, which is basically, marketing yourself and having a lot of people probably try to reach out and set up those lessons. So I would say a lot of the name, image, likeness deals are aligning with that principle, where people are hiring somebody to be an influencer. They're using their status as a student athlete in order to retweet, different things that businesses are putting out there. And so this just goes into it in an overview of what the state law is. It does allow you, and similar, we'll get to University of Cincinnati's policy, but it does allow you to restrict certain businesses, and that I believe is in number 9. If you read through those, and it talks about sports wagering, adult entertainment, etc. And that's where it gives every school in Ohio the ability to state, okay, you can make money off name, image, likeness, but you can't be making it for these certain categories. And so that was a very interesting part of the state law that we instituted in our policy as well, almost immediately. Next slide, please. And so these are the final couple pages of the executive order. And again, it's just going into some actual terms, likeness, name. What does all of this stuff mean for the purposes of name, image, likeness? And C is actually interesting as well on this page. It's number 10C, so limiting the rights of the state institution of higher education to establish and enforce any of the following. So again, there's going to be stuff where team rules come into play. You can't be doing name, image, likeness, during practice. And we'll get into some trademark and licensing issues in a bit. But really, during your accountable athletic related activity hours, those 20 hours a week when you're in season of practice, you can't be skipping those to go do name, image, likeness deals. And so there's verbiage in every university's name, image, likeness policies that will address that as well to go along with the state law. Next page. Again, this is just when he signed it. So as you can see, it was right before July 1st, right when this went into effect, and then we're all trying to educate our athletes right at the last second. Next slide, please. Okay, so the University of Cincinnati, I'm not going to click the link, but it'll be available in the presentation afterwards. We created the Impact program powered by Open Doors. So there's several different companies out there between Open Doors and Flickr. On3 is coming up with some stuff, but Open Doors and Flickr are the two biggest ones out there that are partnering with college athletics. And so what does that mean? Well, it means for the most part, you're utilizing these services in order to get the social media content, and then they have sort of a marketplace where athletes can go and sign up, and then sponsors and companies can go in and try to match up with them and select student athletes in order for name, image, likeness opportunities. So there's a couple different things, but also education, and so that comes into play at a high level. We really want to make sure all of our athletes are educated to know, okay, if you're going to start making name, image, likeness, and you get a deal and you're making $5,000 or $6,000, well, that $6,000 in federal Pell money that you're receiving, you may not qualify for that anymore. What are you doing with your taxes now that you're making, substantial amounts of money and have to file and claim that? So really, it's educating the student athletes to know, okay, this is great, and we're definitely in favor of name, image, likeness, but you also need to consider these other factors that previously, you weren't considering because you didn't have name, image, likeness available to you, because it would have impacted your NCAA eligibility. So there's an education component to it as well that we really try to focus on. This is UC's policy, and as you can see, it's pretty vanilla. We basically just tried to summarize the state law. We included those categories that we did not want the student athletes, out there participating in name, image, likeness opportunities, and that was pretty standard with most schools. But really, we wanted to help them and assist them, and so it's pretty general. I would say, really student athlete focused, to help them understand the rules, and it'll go into the disclosure process, which is part of the state law. So they have to disclose their deals, and what we use, and we'll get into the ARMS directions in a second, but a software provider that assists us with that. Next slide, please. And this is that. So we use ARMS, and basically every athlete goes in, and this is just quick screenshots to show you how it's done, but they go in and they'll fill out whether it's a social media post, what are they receiving? Is it actual cash, or is it product? So there's just a couple different steps that they have to do to go in and state, hey, this company and I are working together. They would like to give me X, Y, and Z, and I'm in here reporting it to make sure we're not violating either state law or the University of Cincinnati's policy as well. And so we just go through and we review those as they come in, and just really educate all of our student athletes to make sure they're following the law and the policy. Slide. And this just goes into it a little bit. You have to click off on the affirmations page that you really are, know what you're signing and you're abiding by it. Now, legally, and I want to point that out, we're not actually reviewing the contract. So you've been seeing these like big deals, some of the bigger deals that maybe the quarterbacks are doing, et cetera, out there. Those are not being run through my office from a legal perspective of reviewing contract terms and things of that nature. All of that goes through if they have an agent, their agency, or any kind of legal services that they may secure on their own. So the schools, the colleges themselves, they're not actually reviewing any of the deals for other than the fact making sure they're following, the state law. Next slide, please. And this just goes into what I wanted to focus on as sort of the pillars of education. So there's two main things right now. Unfortunately, international student athletes are not allowed to participate in name, image, likeness because they're all on student visas. And so that's a federal law. And so if they were starting to participate in name, image, likeness opportunities, they'd actually be violating their visa. So I know there's a few things floating out there of trying to change that moving forward, and I hope it does, because it is unfortunate for them to not be able to participate in some of these deals. So we definitely would like to see that change. But as of now, they cannot participate in any name, image, and likeness opportunities that come their way. And then the trademark and licensing is a big issue. So I get this question all the time. If there is a student athlete out there and we're a Pepsi school at the University of Cincinnati, and they want to do a deal with Coke, can they do that? Well, the answer is yes, they can do that deal with Coke. However, you're not going to be wearing the Cincinnati, trademarks and licensing, so you can't do it in any kind of Cincinnati apparel. So you can do it on your own time and without the CPAW, but you are allowed to do a name, image, likeness deal with a non-UC sponsor. And that's almost how every single school has set it up. Now, if they did want to do a deal with Pepsi and they went and applied for the trademark and licensing, it would most likely be approved since they're already a UC sponsor. Then they could do a commercial or some sort of name, image, likeness deal, with Pepsi if Pepsi wanted to, and wear the UC logo. So there's just a lot that goes into that in regards to name, image, likeness. So that's why you'll see a bunch of student athletes doing stuff on social media and they don't have any UC gear or any of the other schools gear on while they're doing those name, image, likeness contracts and deals. So just very important to point that out. And that's just to protect the university, every single university's trademarks and licensing with their partners and sponsors, that they may have had for years in contracts with them. I think as soon as you see something or an athlete who doesn't go through the proper process, then obviously they have to take those down just like any other business would. So it's important to really dive into that and really know what's going on from a name, image, likeness perspective, and sort of the laws behind trademark and licensing, which a lot of your athletes, again, goes back to education, may not be familiar with. Wait, I can't, do a toothbrush deal and be in a Cincinnati t-shirt, one of my, athletic t-shirts, and the answer is no, you really can't. So you got to be careful with that, specifically. And I think this is my last slide. So one other thing I want to just touch on real quick, because you're seeing them pop up everywhere lately, is these collectives. So name, image, likeness in its true form was made to be, for those student athletes who want to go do lessons or, monetize their opportunities because they're an athlete, but it wasn't made for these collectives, which are just sort of popping up all over the place, and they're what they are is either a group of donors or high level influencers in the community that really want to help student athletes, which is great. However, you got to be careful when it gets to the pay for play aspect. So what they're doing is they're setting up collectives. These groups are coming in and basically stating, we'll give X amount of dollars to every student athlete you have, or not even on a per student athlete basis, but they could pick and choose who they want to give them to. And then we'll have them do maybe 4 charity appearances, or something to that effect. And you're seeing those pop up at a lot of different institutions, and some of them are more legit than others. But it's definitely, concerning, and something the NCAA is looking into right now as, hey, is this just a way to funnel money to student athletes, or is this actual name, image, likeness, getting paid for work performed? Where it gets tricky is fair market value. Who is to determine, if that autograph is worth $25,000 to an individual, who is to tell them that that's pay for play? That's not their fair market value, and then you get into lawsuits and all sorts of other stuff. So it's very interesting, and it's a unique time with the NCAA, and to be in compliance at any institution or involved in college athletics. And it's fascinating, to see what the OHSA is going to do in the Athletic Association, because that's on some of our calls, it's different high schools and kids are moving out of different states, and so it's very unique. So I think in the college sort of sphere of name, image, likeness, we're also paying attention from a recruiting perspective with the high school students, or high school athletes. So very, very interesting. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Trevor, so much for your time. I know for CPS, we love working with you, and we love working with UC. We're really excited to collaborate with UC and have our all-star game down there in just a few weeks. So very excited for that, and thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
With that, I would love to invite Kuda Biza to be our next presenter. I'm gonna cue your screen up.
All right, how's everybody doing? And thank you, Ronald and Trevor, for sharing, because you guys covered the compliance piece, and I'm going to talk about the brand side of things. So, Colleen, you and I are going to have a code. So whenever I do this, you go to the next slide. So, boom. So if you've ever gone to an airport, I'm pretty sure you've seen one of these. And Colleen, if there's animation, just click it once, and then I'll do this again, and then you do the next slide. So anyway, when you go to an airport and you see a kiosk, you need to thank this guy that I'm with. His name is Jeff Hoffman. He's the guy who invented the check-in kiosk at an airport. I had the opportunity to meet Jeff at an event, and obviously a lot of people wanted to talk to him. He's a billionaire. He's invented so many things. He's one of the guys who started Priceline.com. So what I had to do is I had to put in my question really, really quick. And my question was, hey, Jeff, what advice would you give a 20-something entrepreneur? the advice he gave me was I needed to, Pauline, I needed to dream big. And for me, in that moment, I was like, this is quite interesting. And what I have here is a prototype that I actually showed Jeff. And this prototype was something that me and my friend were just gotten a patent on. And we didn't really know what to do with the patent. And as he told us to dream big, we ended up coming with the idea of like, hold on, what if we were to approach all of the big sports franchises of the world? I'm a soccer guy, so I'm like, okay, let's start with soccer. I'm a big Chelsea fan, so I was like, hey, what if I was to go to Chelsea and see if they would do a deal with us where we can license their IP, create a brand around the collectible that we just created, and we ended up launching our brand signables. And what we were able to do is we were able to then create our collectible, go to the next slide, and now it's actually selling in all of these stores across the different clubs. We've been able to have licenses with Chelsea, Barcelona. You can go to the next slide, Colleen. We have licenses with Chelsea, Barcelona, Manchester City, Liverpool, Paris Saint-Germain, Tottenham, Arsenal, Club America, Pumas. Those are 2 Mexican teams, as well as the Mexican national team, because 2022 we have the World Cup coming. And we've been able to take our product into the marketplace, and we started generating a lot of sales. And then COVID happened, because we launched January 2020. We thought we were going to take over the world. We're going to then go to the NFL, to the NBA, to the MLB, and get all these deals, but then COVID hit. We were still able to build our brand into a 6-figure business in 2020, but we were not able to really do everything that we wanted to do. And then another idea came about, right? Remember, Jeff Hoffman, the billionaire, told me to dream big. So we dreamt big. And the idea we had was, what if we could connect athletes, right, and their favorite fans? And we ended up creating this virtual platform that we ended up calling Signathon. And this virtual platform enables fans to talk one-on-one with their favorite athletes. There's Cameo. With Cameo, the athlete just records a video and sends it to you. But with our platform, you actually get to talk to your favorite athlete. So we created this virtual platform called Signathon, and we've been able to do multiple signing events with so many different athletes. So Colleen, go to the next slide and play the video so people can see what a Signathon event is. All right. So Cesar Azpilicueta, he's the captain for Chelsea Football Club. They just won the Champions League with the Chelsea team. We did an event with him. You can see him with our product for Signathon. So as a brand, we're looking for athletes that we want to do events with. So we did an event with Cesar Azpilicueta. It was sold out. You got to sign a lot of merchandise. And in this presentation, what I want you guys to take away with is, what are the 3 things that brands look for when we work with athletes? Because if you look at the Chelsea roster, right, they have about 30 players registered in their first team. But there's a certain number that we want to work with because they fit our criteria, and there's certain players that we will never touch. So as you guys are getting ready to go to college, and with this name, image, and likeness thing, what you want to make sure is that you present yourself in a very attractive way to work with these brands, and obviously take into account the whole compliance side. But I just wanted to share with you from a brand perspective how you can position yourself to then end up having a picture like this, where you have a brand owner like myself paying you money to do an event with us. Pauline, go to the next slide. We did an event with Kendrick Bourne. He's a wide receiver for New England Patriots. And he had just left the 49ers and went to the Patriots. And we thought it was a timely, the best time for us to do an event with him. And we did a signing event where he signed memorabilia. He did the virtual one-on-one with the Signathon platform. And he also even did a little video that Colleen is going to show in a minute, where he talks about what it takes to be successful. So listen. So I'm not sure if you guys are hearing the audio or not. So what I'll do is I'll share the links for the video so you guys can actually listen. But he does share he does share some very interesting tips that you as a student athlete, you should take into consideration, apply in your life so that you can actually then become successful. Now, Colleen, go to the next slide. And on the next slide, don't click all the links yet. Just leave it here for now. Now, I took 3 athletes, and we have Conor McGregor, Naomi Osaka, and Roger Federer. Now, in 2021, so I'm just talking about the money they made last year. Did you know that these 3 athletes made more money from brands than they actually did on the field? So click once, Colleen. Let's talk about Conor McGregor. From UFC through the matches he did 22 million, but brand endorsements and all these other things, he made 158 million. The total he made in 2021, 180 million. You can go on Forbes, you can see all the sources there. Naomi Osaka, click the next slide. She made from her events playing tennis 5 million, and then off the field, she did an endorsement deal with Athletic Greens, a whole bunch of other brands. She made 11 times more than what she did on the field playing tennis, and she made a total of 60 million. And then you can click for Roger Federer. He had a lot of injuries. He didn't really play much last year, so he only made 30,000, but he made $90 million by working with brands. So as an athlete, what you need to realize is that, your career as an athlete is, there's a shelf life to it. But as your career as someone who's working with brands, doing brand partnerships, you have a much longer shelf life. So if you start early, especially now that you can do it in college, and really build your experience with brands, it can actually be where you make the most money. If you look into Michael Jordan, he's made more money after retirement than he actually made when he was playing. Now, if you go to the next slide, it's going to require you to really think about getting outside of your comfort zone, because as a student athlete, right, your comfort zone is on the court, right? It's on the field, playing the game. And then this other side where you're collaborating with brands and doing all these other things, it's really outside of your comfort zone. So just using the numbers we saw in the previous slide, stepping outside of your comfort zone, if you're not really comfortable collaborating with the brands, is actually going to enable you to generate more income for you, for your family, to then move forward with. So you want to be comfortable stepping outside of the comfort zone. And the reason why I share this, and Colleen, you can go to the next slide, is because if you fight for your limitation to say like, well, I'm not really a social media person, I'm not really this, I'm not really that, you get to keep them. And as athletes, I'm pretty sure you know that when you really do go out there and, do whatever you need to do, you actually get better. So what does it take, or what do brands look for in athletes? And I've created a framework called ACP. And I'm going to walk you through those 3 elements because it's going to be important for you to really think about these 3 things. So Colleen, click to the next slide. Authenticity. Authenticity is important. Can you go back? Authenticity is important because if you try to be someone you're not, it will just catch up with you at some point in time. So you really need to be authentic. You really need to be genuine as you're interacting and engaging with people. And I know if you're an introvert, it might be a little bit difficult for you to really show up on social media. And there are ways where you can still be authentic and still be able to provide value to brands. Now, character, it's really, integrity. Brands, we like to work with people who have integrity. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. Your yes should be a yes, and your no should be a no. There was one time I was in Mexico doing an event with a Mexican soccer player, and he was supposed to show up at a certain time, and then he didn't show up for like 4 hours. Do you think we're going to work with him ever again? No, because he doesn't have integrity. Before the event, he wanted to move the engagement multiple times for no real reason. So when you're working with brands, you need to understand that for us, this is business, right? We're trying to build a brand. We're trying to engage our customers. We're trying to really deliver value in the marketplace. So if you sign a deal and you say, hey, I'm going to have a picture for you to post on social media by Tuesday by noon, you should actually over deliver and have it maybe even the day before, right? And then brands like that, because if they see that you over deliver, you're over executing, you have character, you have integrity, you'll see us providing more business to you, recommending you to other brands, right? Because you have character. But if you don't, have character, if you don't show up, if you don't deliver on time, guess what's going to happen? I'm not going to work with you. It's a small space, by the way. We all know each other, right? All the different brand owners. We're going to talk. And eventually you will see that you won't be able to get more value and more business because you don't have character. And then personality really is, are you likable? So look at a person like Shaquille O'Neal, right? He has a very likable brand, is personable, and there are things that you could do as well to make sure that you're likable and you're approachable, and really think about the content that you're posting on social media, what you talk about, and things like that. Because as a brand owner, these are all the things that we evaluate as we're getting ready to pull the trigger to work with an athlete. Now you can go to the next slide, Colleen. Now, when it was announced that the name, image, and likeness, one of our friends, GoPuff, they immediately went out and announced that they wanted to work with as many college athletes out there. And then when I saw it happen, because the guys at GoPuff, they're investors in one of my other companies, I was like, I need to do it for my brand too. So on the right, that's a picture of Sinathon, the business that I own. We also decided to do that. And we really literally opened it up to say like, hey, if you're a college athlete, if you want to work with us and you've gone through all the compliance for your state and your school, apply. Go to the next slide, Colleen. And we received close to 200 applications from students across the United States. And we went through all the different student applications to really see the students' back end. So Colleen, can you go to the next slide? Because when you use platforms like Open Doors, we're able to see your social media account. We're able to see what your social media engagement is like. So if you're thinking about going and buying followers so that you increase your view, don't do that, because brands will have access to tools that enable us to see all those different things. So you really want to make sure as you're building your audience, you're building it authentically. And also, if you're writing your description, when you sign up for some of these platforms, make sure you really take time to really talk about why we should work with you. Remember, you want to make sure that you're very authentic about who you are. You show your character and integrity within those descriptions, but also you show that you're personable, because those are the things that then attract us to you, similar to like this athlete, Christina, that we ended up working with. So if you click onto the next slide, we ended up actually partnering with Christina. She didn't have a big following, but she ticked all the boxes that we liked. We thought that she had character, she was authentic. We looked into all of her social posts, and we also saw that she had a really amazing personality. So we had her do this authentic soccer ball that she signed, and we were able to actually put it on our website and sell it. And because she also goes to a large school, the Seminoles, Florida State, there's a huge audience, and we're able to actually get some of our products into the marketplace and really get some sales. So the campaign itself was actually quite successful. Can you go to the next slide? So remember, guys, as you're building your social media, just know that what you put into the digital universe, these are things that become public information. So be very, very thoughtful about what you're posting. Make sure that you maintain authenticity, character, and a good personality, because those are the things that then attract brands over to you, and you'll be able to actually generate a really good business for yourself. Now, one of the other things I just wanted to mention is that Malcolm X said, "A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything." So make sure that, for your personality, for your character, and also for your authenticity, you're building, your brand, because your person, if you go to the next slide, Colleen, you as an athlete, you are a brand. So make sure that a brand which stands for nothing will fall for anything. You remember that as you're building your brand as a student athlete, and then hopefully you go and become a professional athlete, you're building your brand on something you believe in, something that has character, and you communicate your authenticity, and you attract the brands that you want to work with. Because just because a brand wants to work with you, it doesn't mean that it is the right brand for you and your brand. So just keep that in mind as you guys are moving forward. So that is the presentation I had for you guys. I'll make sure that Josh gets the links for all the videos so that you guys can watch those videos. You can learn about our Sign-a-thon platform. You can learn about our signables business, where we have our sports collectibles. But also you listen to the success tips from Kendrick Bourne, the wide receiver from New England Patriots, because I think if you apply it, he's a professional athlete who's been able to achieve a lot of success. You might be able to replicate that success, because at the end of the day, success leaves clues. It leaves a trail. So if you want to achieve a certain level of success, what you want to do is you want to follow the clues that the other successful people have done. So thank you so much, guys, for giving me the opportunity to present. And yeah, would love to get any questions if you guys have any questions, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Kuda, for that great presentation. I'll invite all of our presenters to turn their cameras back on as we close out this evening. Fantastic. Great information shared this evening. Very grateful to be able to put this information out to all of our families. Big shout out to all of our presenters. NCAA compliance with Trevor Wright. Great information provided. Big time updates from Ronald Sayers and what's happening in Ohio high school athletics and what's coming our way. And of course, Kuda Biza with dropping the knowledge on brand awareness, authenticity, character, and personality. Big time, definitely took that away. And of course, thank you so much. We appreciate your partnerships and support of all of our students and community of Cincinnati Public Schools. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't give another thanks to Colleen Cheek for her coordination and oversight for Beyond the Game series this evening. We would invite everybody back on February 15th for our next Beyond the Game series. And hopefully at that time, it'll be right after the Super Bowl, and we'll all be yelling "Hoo Day" even louder than we open today. So bring it home for the city, Bengals. Hoo Day, Hoo Day. Thanks everybody for tuning in this evening, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Peace.